This video is for people who are considering doing a marriage-based green card in the near future. So whether your immigrant spouse is in the US or going to be in the US soon, or they are abroad and they have no way to legally enter the US until they finish the immigration process, we're going to be talking a little bit about processing times and what I anticipate coming in the very near future, and it's kind of already started. It's no secret to immigration lawyers, although it seems to be a secret to a lot of the general public, that Trump is trying to reduce illegal immigration and, more importantly, legal immigration, except for random groups of people who he seems to favor. The problem is that USCIS is going to be seeing really bad processing times, much longer processing times in the very near future. And we saw it happen the last time Trump was president. I mean, just with naturalization applications, which is an application for US citizenship, we saw the processing time be as long as 24 months. So like you submit the application and 24 months later, you become a US citizen. This was at the end of Trump's last term in some cities. For example, Seattle, it was 24 months towards the end of Trump's last term. Whereas currently, or right before Trump's current inauguration, it was 6 months. So 4 times faster than what Trump caused to happen the last time he was president. And we're expecting much more of that and much worse of it. So people ask me, I have both options. Should my spouse adjust status in the US or consular process abroad? Let me just quickly explain what these two options are. So when you want your spouse to become a permanent resident, if they're already in the US on a tourist visa, they can sometimes just marry you in the US, assuming certain conditions are met, and then apply for adjustment of status without departing the United States. They would need to stay here the entire time, basically, until they become a permanent resident. But it's a great option if your spouse is able to be in the US legally. There are some problems with this option. Number one, at the moment your spouse entered as a tourist, they must have had non-immigrant intent, which means they must have had the intent to depart the United States. But if they enter with the intention to depart, to leave, and then they subsequently change their mind and decide, you know what, we're getting married now, I want to stay here, that's perfectly legal, and they can apply for adjustment of status. And in fact, adjustment of status is my favorite way for spouses to become permanent residents because we can somewhat control certain variables. The processing times are more predictable, but we're expecting processing times to increase. And there are several reasons for this. Number one, we're seeing budget cuts. USCIS is currently undergoing a hiring freeze, and Trump is actively trying to get like certain government agencies, including USCIS, to shed some of its workforce. So we're gonna see fewer USCIS employees and longer processing times. More importantly, they're gonna be bringing back all interviews for marriage-based adjustment of status. And that is going to dramatically increase processing times, and the processing times are going to cause backlogs that are going to increase as we get through Trump's 4 years. So the first thing I say to people is if you're eligible for adjustment of status right now, don't wait. I would apply as soon as possible, because if you wait 6 months, you might be adding way more than 6 months to the processing delays that you're going to encounter in the future. I feel particularly bad for the people who have spouses abroad who are not able to adjust status and who must go through the consular process, because we are expecting serious gutting of the Department of State. So consulates have always been the easiest thing for Trump to basically gut. Reduce the resources available to them, or in some cases, tell them to just deny or not grant visas. For example, Trump did this to several countries the first time he was president. One of them was Iran. He basically said that he doesn't want Iranians entering the US on visas. And a lot of these people were like spouses of US citizens, children of US citizens, parents of US citizens, like innocent people. They're not a part of the Iranian government, but they were targeted. And basically what happened was they would attend their visa interview abroad, and then their case would get sent for administrative processing. And at that point, it would just get lost in a black hole. And like you check 2 years later, or you submit a case inquiry, And the government responds and says, sorry, it's still in administrative processing. We'll contact you when the administrative processing is done. And unfortunately, in many of these cases, we had to sue the US government to force them to do their job and take action on the visa applications. So generally speaking, over the next 4 years, we expect to see substantial delays at the consulates abroad and much more administrative processing, which can just result in cases getting sent into a black hole. And there's oftentimes very little you can do other than a very costly litigation strategy to force the government to take action on your visa application that's pending at a US embassy or consulate abroad. So what's the takeaway here? Just that you need to manage your expectations over the next 4 years. If your spouse is in the US, consider yourself lucky. If you're eligible for adjustment of status, I would consider submitting the application as soon as possible. For those of you who don't know, I'm an immigration attorney and I actually focus my practice on marriage-based green cards and naturalization. We focus on family-based immigration, but within that, I prefer marriage-based cases because, they're happy stories. And I like to be a part of that. So if you're interested in these legal services, you could always schedule a consultation directly with me. I would love to meet with you, help you and your spouse create a plan for the future, especially if you're not married yet. That would be the best time to speak with an attorney. Helps you create a plan for the future so you don't make any critical mistakes. If you're new to my channel, be sure to subscribe. I put out videos on family-based immigration, naturalization, and Trump's policy changes to the immigration process. And I'll see you guys next time for another video.